And we're live. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, CEO and co-founder of the Redman Group, first president of the Manosphere, CEO of 21 Studios, and founder of the 21 Convention. Today's episode 109 of the Redman Group, Civilization is Overrated, with special guest and author Jack Donovan, who's been in the Redman Group before, I think online once or twice, as well as at the 21 Convention and the Redman Group Live, hosted at the events. I think a couple times. Yeah, 3 times at least he's been on the show there. Jack is the author of The Way of Men. You guys can see that. Cult classic. You can find it on Amazon. Link in the description. He's also the author of actually a lot of books. The second one after that was Becoming a Barbarian. And one of his most recent books, this came out, I think, in late 2017, early 2018, More Complete Beast, which actually summarized into a speech. You can see the one viral on 21 Studios of the same title, More Complete Beast. It's got about 105, 110,000 views, something like that. Check it out. Today's going to be a fun show. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jack Donovan. Boom.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. President.
Yeah, man. It's good to see you, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. So before we get into some of the questions and topics I want to go through, it's been a wild year. So how's it been for you at the Way of Men HQ out up in the Northwest? What's going on up there? How you been?
Well, it's been pretty chill, man. I was planning to move to, like next year, I was planning to move to a bigger city, and I'm rethinking that.
Yeah.
I've been pretty lucky in the way that things have been out here. I mean, I live in a pretty small town, so I've been going to restaurants and for a while now, and I'm self-employed, so that wasn't really a big deal, and so it really hasn't been a big problem. People aren't burning down buildings in my town. And there's plenty of, man, I wish I could get a good picture of it. There's a block away from me, there's a guy with a Trump banner in his front yard that, has Trump, but as Rambo with a bazooka out front.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's kind of the neighborhood I live in. So, it's, I mean, I guess if Andy wanted to come up the hill, they have to go through a whole bunch of grizzled, old, angry Marines who've been wanting to shoot a commie for all their lives. So,
yeah. Jesus. So it's pretty rural out there. Yeah. We see a lot of it on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And people can find your Instagram. It's at Start the World. I think it's the URL.
Start the World. Yeah. That's kind of my major thing. Although I'm trying out that parlay thing.
Oh yeah.
Jumped on there, and that's I've been getting some bunch of followers in there recently. So
yeah, same. I just joined too, and it's got a lot of engagement. I like it.
Yeah, it has promise. If it doesn't turn into Gab, I think it has promise.
Yeah, I think it's got a good future, particularly I think you said as well on your Instagram that it's got mainstream conservatives and stuff moving to it, whereas Gab never really had that. Exactly. It was just it was like Alex Jones and Paul Joseph Watson, and that was it.
Yeah. And this it has Rand Paul and everything on.
Yeah. So just from my perspective this year, I've thought a lot about your work throughout the year, particularly for example, shit hitting the fan, survivalist kind of stuff, masculinity coming back into fashion very quickly. A lot of us, younger guys, we saw this with girls hitting us up during the pandemic. All of a sudden, girls you hadn't heard from in 6 months or a year are hitting you up out of the blue. And the prevailing theory is that they're just freaking out because things were, kind of scary for them.
Right.
And then they knee jerk to, finding masculine men. But more recently, for me, I wanted to tell you this, live in the air, watching the riots go down and all this stuff. I feel like it's been watching a live action movie of your book on TV every day, especially during the peak of it when it was really kicking off for the first week or two.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, it's like World War Z mixed with The Way of Men. Everything Jack has ever said is being vindicated live on national TV with police precincts burning down, people grouping up. We're going to get into this a little bit with news articles, but we're seeing, the Italians group up into a gang, the Russians, the Greeks. It's so out of your book. It's funny if it wasn't, businesses burning down, people dying, but in a sense, it's still funny though, from a very distant kind of perspective.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's the stuff I wrote is me figuring out the way the world actually works. a lot of it, and that
Bravo.
it still works that way, you know, like
Yep.
and you know, people lived in this fantasy where it didn't. And you know, there's an essay I wrote, Violence is Golden, and I'm trying to work out on a YouTube video of it right now. And but you know, it was originally intended to be the beginning of the Way of Men. And you know, it just basically talks about, you know, that why we need police, and what happens if we don't have them, and the fact that even when you don't think that the world runs on violence, it still does.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, people aren't being raped and murdered on an everyday basis, you know, like everywhere, because they're scared of the police hunting them down with guns.
Yep.
You know, like it's not
Yep.
like we're at, like, people have actually become more civilized. They're just scared. You know, like they realize there are going to be consequences. And you know, when you take that away, I mean, you know, I mean, I'm glad I don't live in the cities where they're going to defund the police, but like, I'm kind of glad they are. You know, like go ahead and do it. You like, see what happens. You know,
Jesus. Yeah.
You know, like see what happens, because it's going to be very instructive for a lot of people who have a lot of stupid ideas about how reality works.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because you say violence is golden, but usually we don't hear that. Usually we hear silence is golden, or violence is evil and bad and blah, blah, blah. But I get what you're saying 100%. But for the guys who are newer to your work, why is violence golden? Is it the final power? Is that kind of what you're saying at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, in the essay, I say it's the gold standard. It basically, like, when everything else doesn't have any value, if I punch you in the fucking face, it has value. You know, like that has universal value. In the essay, it like music. They always say music is the universal language. Well, violence is the universal language because you all understand. You know, like if I'm like. Your monkey brain responds to, hey, I'm gonna punch you, or hey, I'm gonna hit you with a lead pipe, or hey, I'm gonna shoot you. We all understand that, and it really just, you can't have order without it, because you know, the first dude, you know, you can all decide to be peaceful in a cute little circle, and you know, the first dude who was like, I bet I could take your stuff, you know, like that. You need violence to stop that, because someone's going to do that. And
well, you just call the police, man. They'll do it for you, unless you abolish them
with violence. You know, like
violence,
that's, you know, like, you know, basically the police just come and like assault you, and then like the only reason why you say, okay, sir, I'll walk away with you, is because otherwise they'll kill you.
Yep.
Like that's violence, and that's the only reason laws work. Like,
well, it's also the basis of taxation today, is it's collected under the threat of violence, which is people forget a lot about.
Yeah, well, because you wouldn't pay it otherwise. Why would I give the government like 20% of my income if they didn't make me? You know, like that's the only reason. You know, like, and all of it. You can't run a business. I mean, all the laws that protect businesses, all these things, like it's all rooted in violence, and you know, it's just a nasty part of human reality that it's always going to be there.
Yeah, putting some you know, here we go, adding it, putting some picture or video to the to what you're saying here. This is actually a group of Italians defending their pizzeria. I don't know what city this is in. With shotguns. Awesome. I mean, it's pretty, and there's a lot of videos like this. It's not just the Italians, of course. But it's just I mean, there's a whole group of people that come up to them trying to smash the store and all that crap. And yeah, they have to defend it with violence. They can't, you know, wherever the cops are, they're not there. And then, of course, this is also, you'd probably be familiar with the famous meme, the roof Koreans were the ones famous for the LA riots.
Classic. Yeah.
Classic roof. Yeah, the classics, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that we're living through a new age of classics that are being created right now, obviously. But I mean, and that's something that I think that a lot of people have now had to realize, is that the police may not come. And
the police may not even exist in some cities. It's gone. Like
which I think that'll be probably bullshit a little bit, and they're you know, do some things that don't really matter. But I mean, but you know, like in these riots, obviously the police can't do anything, because once you press play on that, like it's gonna go down fast. So they had to not do anything.
Yeah.
And so they had to just let stuff happen because they're under orders to do that. And so there you are. If you don't know how to defend yourself, if you can't protect your property or whatever, it gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can do about it. And I think that's good because a lot of people are being forced to think about that reality.
Yeah. You're either being forced to face it in a very visceral way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it could be really good for society, but it's just so hard to tell where things are going because they're moving so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to get. I mean, you've talked about this in several of your books, I think, but it's easy. Well, I don't know how to put it exactly. You kind of you look at it from both angles. Like, are we doomed? Is this the fall of Rome? Is it all over? Or are things going to get a lot better? Are we maybe at the beginning of a better age rather than something dark? What I think in your book, basically, you keep it open to both possibilities, that we could be hitting like a new dark age, or we could be going somewhere very positive, where a lot of the stuff gets worked out and we build a better future.
Man, that's what I want. Everybody thinks I'm like this doomsday guy who lives off the grid and like hates the world and just wants to burn it down. And it's the exact opposite, man. I like my life. I'm doing cool stuff. I really don't want to live through a civil war, although that's kind of where it looks like it's going right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good for anyone. If you actually understand anything, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. But, I also don't want to be a slave. So, it really is the founders of our country. It's coming back to a lot of principles that they had to deal with.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you said violence, we're talking about violence is golden. How do you think the founders played that out in real life? Were they an example of violence is golden, using it for something very just and very noble? Or is it fitting what you were saying here in terms of fighting off the British Empire and building a nation?
Yeah, man. I really want to read a biography. I mean, there was this great series recently, and History Channel usually produces garbage, but there was this great series on George Washington. And I watched the whole thing. It was really well done and really even-handed, and it talked about his life. And there's a guy who was raised to fight for the empire. He's raised to fight for Britain, and so he's part of the military class. And at a certain point, that's like someone says no, and he had to change sides, really, and join a different thing. And I really think he's a really positive example of a lot of things that I'm talking about in my older work, but also in things that I'm working on now, in the sense that he's this servant of order, and the servant of order and freedom, and but isn't obsessed with power. And that's the difference between, I think, him and a lot of people who came after him, and a lot of people now. I mean, the dude wasn't obsessed with power; he just wanted to make things right.
Yeah, he had the opportunity to be a king, basically, and there was a lot of push for that from certain people, but he turned it down.
Exactly. Like he's a good dude.
Yeah. We need to bring him back and quit tearing his statues down. Isn't it amazing that we're seeing statues of him and Thomas Jefferson torn down? It's like, holy shit, man. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing about the really far left, and the really far left and the really far right are both equal pains in the ass, but and they deserve each other, and we don't deserve the rest of them. But they want to tear things down because they hate ideals, and they hate anything that came before them, and they hate anything that's a kind of a gold standard, and but they can't replace it with anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask, they don't replace anything. Is this related to your concept of the empire and nothing you talk a lot about?
Yeah. I mean, which is weird because I really think the far left, they're just useful idiots right now for big corporations and so forth. They're not really, let me tell you, Oprah Winfrey and, Microsoft guy and whatever, they're not going to let a bunch of Trustafarians redistribute their wealth. Like that's not happening. Communism is not coming. Like that. Obviously, they're pushing that, and that's their ideology and whatever. But all these extremely, Jeff Bezos, they're not going to be like, oh, you know what, guys? Here's my trillions of dollars. Why don't you just share it? That's not happening. And so I don't know where they think they're going or what they think they're actually going to achieve. They're just destroying things.
Let's actually move into this while you were mentioning the far left and the far right. So before we went live, you mentioned that there was an article that came out, National Review, and you've requested they do a retraction. So the far right's people problem, and they're associating you with Antifa or something like that. So what's going on here?
Yeah. Man, it's a rough day. I've been working. Obviously, I mean, anyone who's followed my work or whatever, it's like as a new author, the first people who ever wanted me to speak anywhere were like the alternative right and white nationalists and stuff. And so they invited me to go speak some places. And I've never said anything like hateful towards other groups. And that was never really my thing. I'm like, hey, I'll speak. And, I see some good points that you have. And, there was some common ground there. And I think that you've made a lot of posts actually recently on social media. The one thing that you can advocate genocide against one group of people in America, and it's white men. Yep. And that's not cool. And it's not fair. And that's the best argument they have. Unfortunately, they go down a road that is really unproductive and, pie in the sky stuff. And it does things that don't work and aren't good for America or anyone. But, that is the one point that they have. And it just shows actually that, like these big social media companies, they don't actually want to stop hate, because I can tell you that all this stuff, this constant banning and saying that like you can kill white men and you can, and all that, that's created. These guys are probably having a boom right now. They're getting a lot of money and they're getting a lot of guys who are being drawn into something that's really stupid at the end of the day, but they're being drawn into the far right they're being pushed there kind of by the far left and by the social media and so forth, because they feel attacked.
And you mean like white nationalist groups and stuff like that, like super far right stuff?
Super far right. Yeah. I mean, which, like white nationalism, like that doesn't work in America. There's no way. How do you do that? That doesn't even make sense. But I
get what you're saying, that it's, there's explicit calls to abolish whiteness, this white fragility, slander and defamation against white people. White people are literally under attack as a group of people in America right now and throughout the West. And it's explicit. Yeah. It's spray painted on walls. Kill whitey, abolish white people. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, to allow that, on these platforms, but like say that you can't say that about anybody else, it's unfair. And dudes see that and they react to it and they get mad and they get pushed in this direction that ultimately is unworkable. And so that I mean, obviously, so I've had a good amount of experience dealing with like white nationalists and the far right and whatever. I basically, I did some speaking and so forth and hung out with them, up until Charlottesville when they kind of went full white nationalist. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm out. I don't want to deal with you guys anymore. You're stupid. You're making bad decisions. Yeah. If you're going to march with actual Nazis, then that's what you are. And I don't want any part of that. And, so, I've been trying to clean up my name and get the hell away from that for like years. I mean, actually, that was one of the reasons why I started speaking at 21 convention. I'm like, oh, this is positive. This is just guys trying to help men be better. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm about. And so, I was really excited to get that opportunity to go and speak at 21 and start down like a more positive road. I mean, really, I was only dipped into that world for like 2 or 3 years, but man, does that follow you for a while. Anyway, so that article in the National Review, it's really embarrassing for them. And I think they might take it down. I mean, I would hope, because basically it's a book review, but it's a book review of a book, where the chapter on me was written by a guy named Matthew N. Lyons, who, if you go to his website, has like, in his about page, it's like, it shows that he's been writing for many years and he's very proud of it for Antifa. Wow. I mean, so it's a book written by Antifa that the National Review, this conservative publication, just repeated all their talking points.
Yeah. And so telephone game bullshit.
Yeah. It's very embarrassing for them. And some of what I'm trying to get retracted is like they say that I'm still in the Wolves of Inland, which is, I haven't been for like a year and a half. And they put my name beside Richard Spencer. And, Richard Spencer actually texted me a few days ago. And I sent him he sent me a voicemail. Of course, I'm not going to call and talk to him. But I sent him a text. I'm like, hey, dude, we're not going to the same place. We can't really talk. Like, I don't want to be associated with what you're doing or where you're going. And, you know, because I knew him, obviously, you know, he invited me to speak and so forth. And so it's just really frustrating because I'm like mentioned right beside him as if we're buddies. Yeah. And then, you know, and it's just then, but that's unfortunately the media can create a reality that's not true. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to do something good. And it's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, Richard, yeah, I hear you, man. Richard Spencer seems to be a tool of the crazy left to go after positive voices. You're an example of that, but also recently they're going after, I think, Jack Murphy, you know, from the convention, and Mike Cernovich. Okay. And Jack Murphy apparently he almost beat the shit out of Richard Spencer. And this is a whole debacle they had in person up at an event that Mike Cernovich was putting on a while ago. Yeah. And they were tweeting about this publicly. This is a couple days ago. It's the same thing. Richard Spencer's like this, you know, this hammer to beat people up with. Yeah, it's very sketchy. Very
yeah. I mean, and you know, it's a shame because you know, like I've had drinks with the dude. Like he seems okay, and then unfortunately, he's just chosen this path. And okay, well, I can't go with you where you're going, but he's chosen this path, and he's protected. You know, I mean, he's a guy who's always going to have money. I mean, I think you remember him saying that to me, like, I'll never run out of money. You know, like, because you know his family's rich, and
he's trust him, maybe. Okay,
yeah, and a lot of that, and the same thing is on the far left. Obviously, you have a lot of these people who are Antifa, who are like, you know, the classic fucking put down is sorry, I'm killing your YouTube stuff with F words, but the classic thing is trustafarians.
Okay.
You know, like they were, you know, all the people on the left are trustafarians. You know, like they know that if they're done getting mad at daddy, that they can go back and get their BMW back and whatever, and they're fine. Yep. And but they're going to beg for change on the street. And I remember like living in San Francisco, you'd see that all the time. It's like, oh, these kids are not poor. Yep. You know, like and the same thing. You know, a lot of the figures. I mean, on the far right, the very far right, obviously white nationalists and stuff. I mean, they're, you know, they have money, they come from money. And so they can say whatever they want and do whatever they want. So they're free in that way. But, you know, they have no consequences. I mean, I have to think about consequences of my actions, you know, and so forth. And because I'm basically working class. And, you know, but he can just do whatever. So he gets to play and have fun being this like radical figure in history. And that's cool for him, you know, but it's, you know, unfortunately what I see and what really makes me angry is that these guys take a lot of people with them, and a lot of good dudes who, you know, went down the wrong internet rabbit hole, and their lives get ruined. And it's sad because they could have been good guys and whatever. I mean, and I've talked to a lot of dudes who, you know, they see this stuff and you know, they see white men kneeling in the streets and they get angry. They're like, I don't want to kneel. I'm not going to kneel. Like good dudes. They're like, that's not what I'm about. And I talked to them. I'm like, yeah, but dude, there's no way out of that. Like you don't go down that path. You know, like if you want to be a good white person, just, you know, have white kids and raise them well and have a job and do good. You know, there's no war that's coming where the Nazis or the white nationalists rise up and take over America. That's not legitimate.
Yeah, it's a cartoonish take on white people in America. You see it even in movies and stuff. Like I saw it in the Purge series. Have you ever seen that? The movie series?
I'm aware of it. I haven't seen them, but yeah.
Oh, it's exactly. I mean, it's absurd. It's like there's this new political party that gets formed, the New Founding Fathers or some shit. Yeah. And there's literally like KKK people in trucks with like torches driving down the road, shooting up black churches and shit. I mean, it's absurd.
And that's a far left fantasy. I mean, you know, like that's one of the things I've dealt with. You know, the SPLC is just a terrible organization. And
their hate group, yeah.
Yeah, and they've but they make their money, and you know these organizations, like I'm sure the people at the top are being paid like a lot of money. You know, like they're doing fine, and so they make their money by scaring white liberals into like sending them money. You know, like there are new hate groups on the rise, And that's what they say every year, like they've been saying that every year for forever. And this year it's probably true. But I've been named as being in one of those hate groups, and I could tell you it was 5 guys sitting around a campfire. like it's not a lot of their hate groups that they report are one dude who's on the spectrum and has a website. It's one dude in a computer. There aren't. I mean, the FBI crushed real neo-Nazis like in the late 90s. I mean, they don't exist in any way that's scary. There's no big rising tide of neo-Nazis that are coming back to kill people of color. That's not real. In fact, I mean, if you really know white nationalists, and I've been in a room with lots of them, and this was a surprise to me because I got flown out to talk at one of their events and so forth, and it was like I didn't even know I was supposed to hate. But that's what they're really about. They don't really hate black people that much. They're just kind of like, oh, they're kind of bad and they create crime. And but when they talk about they can't stop talking about Jews. That's their major thing. Oh yeah, no, that is their major thing. And
wow.
Once they go down that rabbit hole, then they can attribute every problem in the world. And they're like, well, it's the Jews. Well, it's the Jews.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what they do. And wow, that's a super unproductive way to look at problems. Like, oh, everything in the world is, and I wrote about this a little bit in A More Complete Beast. I mean, not that specifically, but they take on a victim mindset. Yeah, exactly. They take on a victim mindset where, like they're oppressed minority, that the Jews are out to get them. And so they just kind of become victims, and they lose a sense of agency, and it's just really an unhealthy way to think and to live. And it's not true. I mean, like, if you look at all these, the people who are, messing with things right now, it's like Bill Gates, he's not a Jew, like all these other, they're not running everything, and they're not like the people really behind everything. But that's what they believe. And, it's just not true.
Yeah, victim culture seems to be the real pandemic for the past 10 years or so, and it keeps growing and growing. It's everywhere, That's what I see with all this BLM stuff and Antifa and all this crap. I mean, Antifa is particularly toxic, but yeah, it's all this victim culture, no responsibility, no agency, don't fix my shit, blame everyone else, whatever. The Jew thing, you see that on YouTube a lot. It's all over YouTube, these comments. These little, just random accounts, no face, no name, no, it's not a real account, it's like a little bot. Or not, it's like a puppet.
Yeah, what's amazing is how courageous the white man is behind his anonymous profile. I get these guys all the time. I had somebody impersonate me on Instagram yesterday. Like,
oh wow,
yeah, it was a rough day yesterday.
Man, you got impersonators on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's. I mean, an account person, it's just like an alt-right troll, and they're all like anonymous guys who hide in the shadows because they probably work at Best Buy and they're going to lose their job if anyone knows what they do.
Yep.
But or they did work at Best Buy when it was open, and they're never going to create anything, and they're just sad little dudes. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely for them. It's all about the Jews, and it's unfortunate, and because that's not a position of strength and that's, I think as men, we need to take agency and take ownership of our situation, no matter what it is. And not just, we can be mad. Obviously the founders were like, hey, the king, not cool. We're being oppressed. I mean, sometimes that's real, but what are you going to do about it? And if you're not going to do anything, if that's your whole mindset and you just focused on that for your whole life, man, that's not a great life.
Yep. Yeah, much better to be creative and stay solar. I hear it's a good thing.
Exactly. I'm trying to stay solar.
Yeah. The sun, the neon light behind you is doing a pretty good job of that. So
yeah. It helps.
Let's talk about staying solar though. So this is a whole concept that you've been promoting for a while now. It's been your shtick for at least a few months. I love it. It's been picked up by a lot of guys in the manosphere that follow you. I say it sometimes. Even when your speech came out, get ready to get solar.
Yeah.
Guys like Tanner, Goldman, everyone likes it a lot with good reason.
Yeah. It's really positive. And as I said, I've been trying to push people in a positive direction and talk about creating, being the center, being the warm center of the people around you, and being this positive force of order and light. I mean, I think that's what men. I think their primary thing is that men care about order. And I think that I was on Parlay the other day, and that's one of these big things that I'm pushing right now is that don't be confused about this race thing or the other thing. If men are going to have any kind of pushback, it has to be in the service of order, and it has to be in the service of excellence. And excellence is really kind of the opposite of victim culture. This culture where you're valued by how much you've been hurt and oppressed and like by how badly you're losing is antithetical to the idea of trying to be the best that you can be. And I think that men have traditionally loved the idea of excellence, and that's one of the things I say. That's one of the reasons why the white nationalists and so forth are never going to be anything, because guys in the military and all the really high performing dudes in the world, elite athletes, like special forces guys, all these guys, they care about excellence. They want to surround themselves with the best men all the time, and that's what they're about. And I think that that's what we should all be about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess rolling it back to stay solar. I mean, I think that there's also a lot of value in staying on your path. I think the sun is a really good imagery because it's very constant in what it does, and it's going to do. One friend of mine who's actually kind of an operator dude. This is his quote was that like sometimes the sun's going to blind you. Like it's going to do what it's going to do, whether you like it or not. And so I think it's important to stay on your path and not be, especially in this day and age with all the social media and so forth. It's easy to be pulled off path by every little thing. And I think it's important to remember who you are and what you're about and stay there. And keep going in the direction that you're going and not let every little thing pull you in this way and that way and whatever. And that's a constant struggle I think we all have to deal with, especially with all this input. I mean, I just wanted to sit down and write a book this year, and like the life happened, like this whole area, it's like, I don't like to even comment on current events, but I felt like I was called to, like I had to at a certain point, like, cause I saw some stuff that I wasn't seeing people talk about.
I felt the exact same way, man. Before this year, I almost never commented on race stuff in America. Like extremely rare. It'd be once a year, maybe. And usually just to rile people up and kind of troll people and fuck with them. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That's your jam. I know. Yeah.
But now it's not a joke anymore. Like, it's, I feel like racism was dying off in America, real hatred and prejudice against other people. And now it's been a huge uptick. And it's just Orwellian crap. We're told that BLM is anti-racist and anti-racism is this new religion. It's all garbage. It's Antifa. They're all fucking racist, man. It's crazy, and they're sowing hatred between people, and it's fucked up. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I do. I agree as well. I do think that it was on the downslide. Racism was like going away, because I really think that it's 20th century discussion. I think that the power that what the far right is pulling from these ideas that were really like like late 19th century ideas, and then became obviously World War II, and that reached their kind of zenith in World War II. And they're pulling from these ideas that are old, and like the elites that these guys worship, like these guys all worship, their ancestors and these ancient kings and all this stuff. And those people, their bloodlines have all moved on. Like they care about wealth now. They don't care about race or their people or whatever. And so it becomes kind of it's a pleb thing, like to focus on that. And I think that, I think the world, just because of the way it operates, because of, global trade and so forth, people are interested in different things. And I don't think race really matters. Like I said, we care about excellence now. Like the best people care about excellence, and that's what we should be focused on. And, I think that the people who, the left wants to LARP, the left and the far left and the far right really they're LARPing like the early 20th century. Like they want to do commies versus Nazis, and it's like cowboys and Indians, like they want to do this thing that's it's inconsequential. Like communism isn't coming, Nazis aren't coming. Like these are not real problems. The real problems are, billionaires moving, like making stuff happen that's bigger than any of us. Yeah. And, like the surveillance state and, like real threats to liberty that just happened.
Other ones would be like one world government, one world currency, collapsing economies, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the real problems are not like black versus white or whatever. That's not the issue. It's definitely, I mean, we just saw how the freedoms that we took for granted were just taken away from us.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about that problem.
By tiny little tyrants too. Not even the president, but mostly governors and these little mayors and shit of counties and cities. I call them tiny tyrants, little bullies, man.
Yeah.
You're freezing up. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. I mean, my state's run by this chick. Yeah.
You're back.
My state's run by this chick who's the perfect, like she's an SJW basically, like, and like she's on the train, and so like, no, you have to do this, no, you have to do that, and they're kind of mad with power.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the problem in America, not race. Like that's what we should care about is hey, I would still like to be free next year. Like that's what we need to focus on. And I've been trying to, that's why I feel like I've been talking at all about politics, is just like, I'm trying to steer people away from the extremes, and because we have something in common that we're about to lose.
Yeah.
Like I want black men and white men and men of color and all that to realize that they're about to not be free.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Yeah. You actually have a great article on this that I thought we should pull up. And you put this out September 5th, 2019. I loved it when it came out. And I loved it because of its simplicity and its focus on what really matters. I hadn't seen someone do this. Usually people focus on the Constitution. Maybe like me, they'll focus on the Declaration of Independence. But you actually focus on something different, the Bill of Rights. That's the beginning of the federal Constitution, or the first, 10. So talk to me about this. Like, why did you choose? I mean, isn't this outdated, the Bill of Rights? I mean, this is ancient text. Don't you got to get with the times, dude? I mean, come on, man. This is 2020, bro.
Yeah, freedom is so out of fashion.
Oh, totally.
Like it's so like 20. Like it's so 1776. But
I really love this, though. I mean, the focus on the Bill of Rights is what matters now. That is like that.
I think that's what can unite us. I mean, and this is like, again, this is my response to, like, obviously I've been in different places. I've been to the extremes. I mean, it's like, people want to put me in a box because I was like, I hung out with these people for like 3 years, but I've also, been a liberal in San Francisco. I voted for John Kerry at one point. Like I've done the whole thing. And this is what I care about. Like at the end of the day, I think the Bill of Rights is something that most American men can get behind. And I don't care what color you are or whatever. I think that, like these are there. People always think of rights, and this is a really bad mistake that gets perpetuated by a lot of these extremist groups, is that people always think of rights as things that the government's supposed to give you. And
you mean positive rights is what that's called. Exactly.
Positive rights. And, really the Bill of Rights is to protect you from the government.
Yeah. They're all negative rights. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's what matters. And these are in place because power was abused so often in the past. Yep. That the founders thought these things, here are the things that are important because we've seen this stuff go bad.
Yep.
And we're seeing these be ignored and used as toilet paper and whatever. And they're there for a reason. And, like that's what the founders fought for. And
I think what aggravates me too a lot is not just there's government abuses, local, state, federal, sometimes of these rights, sometimes massively. The surveillance state on all Americans is an example of that. But also now we see what's frustrating, and it's now a big issue, of course, on the internet, is basically corporations, huge multi-billion, even trillion-dollar corporations like Apple, basically circumventing the Bill of Rights and being policers of speech and things like that. And given that they're not governments, the Bill of Rights is, like you're saying, it's a statement of rights for Americans, negative against government, restrictions on government. But it's like I see the Bill of Rights not just as a set of political rights, but as American values. And that's kind of what I take away from your focus in this article too. And these corporations, for the first time, I think, in American history at this level, are really aggressively against these rights as values, not just as political rights that are limitations on government. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it's from people who don't have the consequences of their actions. I mean, like if you have a private security force, you don't have to care about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Then a lot of these people do. Like I said, they're not rioting at Bill Gates's house because I'm guarantee you it's defended. And that's the problem, is that these oligarchs are basically like they're protected, and so they don't care about everybody else having rights. And so the rest of us, just get, I guess I'll just be drug out on the street and be beaten to death because, we need these things to protect ourselves.
Although interestingly, in California, I saw in LA, they had Antifa or BLM at some point. They had signs that said "Eat the Rich."
Yeah,
I was like, hey, maybe they'll learn a lesson. Maybe Bill Gates will have rioters show up at his house trying to eat him.
Yeah, but they won't, because that's hard. It's easy to because they pick easy battles. They're not gonna. I lived in LA, and man, I knew when I left that I'm like, this is a powder keg, because Compton is not that far from Beverly Hills. There's a lot of extreme wealth really close to a lot of poverty, and but you didn't see Antifa like going to Beverly Hills because it's probably defended. And also that's a hard fight. They just want to march in the street and jump up and down and break a lot of things and have a central city location. But if they really wanted to eat your rich, I mean, they're there. They're there. Go have fun. And I don't like class. I mean, hating people who have more than you is a leftist class thing. And I don't hate people who have more money than me. Same. It does become concerning when you're when people have more money than nations. That's because that's an extreme amount of power. Yeah. And really they don't have the restrictions that nations have. They can do things that are kind of above the law in a weird way, and so it's concerning. But the average person who's maybe a millionaire, I don't hate that guy. I'm like, let me know your secret. I want to do well in life. I want other people to do well in life, and I don't want to be this person who hates everybody who has more than them. And that's what the left kind of pushes. They take advantage of this jealousy, and I talked about it a lot in A More Complete Beast. I think one of the biggest problems in the world is resentment, and this idea that like someone who has more than you is you're going to punish them in some way. Nietzsche talked a lot about it in terms of Christianity and so forth. Like they're going to be punished in heaven. And, they're going to be punished in hell, and we're going to heaven because we're the good poor people and they're the evil rich people. But, it's then also is obviously part of Marxism and all this kind of stuff, this class hatred. And, I think that America really, even as bad as things were, and obviously you and I have both addressed problems that were going on in America that were long before this year.
Yeah.
But up until this year, America was a pretty good place to live. For most people, there was still a lot of opportunity and a lot of,
envy of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of opportunity. If you really wanted to be something, you really still could. And, I hope that that's still around, in a little while, I think that, people who work hard were still doing well.
Yeah. I'm optimistic. I mean, things are pretty fucking rough right now in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think the feminists here are going to have their summer now. They're going to come back around. You have all the stuff going on now. You have the pandemic stuff. You have the economy stuff. But I'm still pretty confident. Well, not confident, but that's not the right word. Optimistic that history will repeat itself and we'll see kind of a roaring 20s. I do think Trump's going to win, probably in a landslide of some sort, pending some variables that are still unknown. And we'll see things bounce back, but we got to see if that happens, It's one thing to theorize about it and guess, but it's another for it to play out in real life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big blind spot that the media creates, I think, because they only see people who are engaged with them. And that's what they mistook with the Trump election last time, is like they only see their world and they only see the people who are engaged with them. I'm like, do you know how many dudes don't have social media profiles? Who are just sitting back and watching and shaking their heads like, no. And I mean, I know a lot of guys like that who just are not active on social media. They're not out there, but they're sitting there and they're watching.
Well, they call this the Twitter echo chamber too. Is even more specific form of it. These Twitter's filled with leftists, hard left, crazy left, whatever, and it's just they think they're the majority because they're just in this little echo chamber of Twitter, just retweeting each other in this giant circle jerk that just goes to infinity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's and that's, you see that in different places. I mean, obviously, like I live near Portland, and Portland is like, it's just assumed that you're a progressive. It's if not far left, you're at least a progressive, and it's you could sit, people will talk to you, they won't possibility that you're not. And the idea, like Nazis to them, like they can't even imagine that you would, and that you would have not heard the gospel and not understand, like that, the NPR reality that they live in, and that's, it's so, that's a very local echo chamber, and it's really difficult to watch, in the sense that, like, how long will that last? In Portland, one of the best things about Portland was the restaurant scene. Like, there was a lot of really high end, top of the world kind of food that you could get, done by chefs with tattoos who didn't really charge that much. Like it was really, they had a really good restaurant scene, and most of the restaurants in Portland will never open again. Wow. And as a result of the policies of the far left governor. And like, I'm like, how much will it take for people to, who just lost their jobs and their dreams and their entire way of life, to realize that it's the result of something that they've supported? Yeah. And I think that if there is, in the election season, we'll have to see. I mean, I can't imagine that there aren't a lot of people who, like, I'm poor now. Like I just I had a big dream. I was successful, and now I have nothing, and I'm in debt because of what these liberal governors have done. Yeah. And I hate the word liberal. I mean, it sucks, because I mean, I'm probably a liberal, like a classical liberal, like I believe in freedom. Like, there's nothing in what they're pushing that is about liberty. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, that they get to use that word, and like, it's perpetuated by conservatives. We call them liberals as a slam, and that's just how it works out. But I mean, for years I was calling them police state progressives, and man, it has never been more true. Except for when they're against the police and somehow think they're going to enforce all their policies without the police, which I don't know how that works. But they live in a kind of female fantasy zone. So,
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. They do want a police state. They want a police state and then abolish the police. It's this weird, but in a way, it's fitting, because everything they do is hypocritical and contradictory. So, what else would they do? That's exactly, I think, what I think you've really articulated what they want. No police and a police state.
Yeah. It's like I said, baby talk. I mean, you live in the grown-up world with the rest of us. Do you understand anything about how life works? But they don't.
Yeah. I saw a BLM leader on Black Lives Matter leader on TV just a day or two ago. It was recent. It was a big thing on Twitter yesterday, blown up. Because the anchor, this woman, was trying to question him if what he was saying was literal or figurative or whatever. Because he was saying explicitly that if BLM doesn't get what they want, they're going to burn everything down. Right. And she's like, what do you mean? And, Trump was tweeting about this, insurrection, treason, stuff like that, explicitly. Yeah. And the dude just won't even, it reminds me of baby talk, though. It's like, give me what I want, or I'm just going to have a temper tantrum and burn stuff down. In this case, he mentioned everything. So yeah. And man, again, like, not understanding the tactical reality of that is bad. Yeah.
is real bad, because once that starts, it's not going to stop. Like in our lifetimes, probably. Like it's all the dudes who know how to take out a large amount of people. There are a lot of them. Like there are a lot of guys who are not going down. They're not gonna let people burn their neighborhoods down.
They're angry right now too, man. I've seen them talking. I've talked to some of them, hit me, DM me and stuff on social media and stuff like that. These guys are war veterans, combat veterans, and they're fucking pissed, man, at the way shit's going down. Like really, really angry, and they're not public about it. They're just in private discussing it.
Because they're smart. That's the thing. Like they're not. I mean, I'm a public figure, and you're a public figure, and this is how we make our living. This is what we do. Yeah. But that's not what they do, and so they're not going to expose themselves to risks in that way.
Yeah,
because they're smart tactically, and they're going to sit there. But I mean, the capability of what these guys can do, is pretty staggering. And
I know.
Okay, you can march at them with like signs, signs and torches if you want. They can take you all out. And there's so many of those guys. I mean, America's been at war or whatever overseas for a long time. There's a lot of war veterans, and there's a lot of guys who have a really advanced skill set and a lot of weapons. Yep. And so I hope that they're not stupid enough to start that, because, like I said, once they start it, it won't stop. And those guys are a switch, and once you turn that on, it's go time. Yeah. And it's really one of my other fears is that they're gonna push some people into a shooter position, and then they're going to use that to be like, oh, well, we need to take away guns now, because they'll do a police state in the opposite direction. I really think it's just, like I said, the left and the far right are just useful idiots right now. And, I wonder if the powers that be are like, well, we'll just wait until the next shooter, and then we're going to push this the other way. And, but again, I don't think that's the other problem that people don't see, I think, on the far left, is that the police are not going to go around house to house disarming people like that. The cops aren't for that. They won't support that, and they won't do it.
Most cops like people owning guns. I've talked to deputies and cops in person that I don't even really know, just talking to them for whatever reason. They love guns. They want you to own. They always recommend like a shotgun or something. I own a couple guns. But there's even cops on TV now. There's the sheriff in Polk County, Florida, was famous for it a few weeks ago. That's about an hour from me, not even. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, I encourage, he had this real accent, redneck accent. He's like, I encourage them, my citizens here, to own guns. They love guns. I encourage them to blow you out of the house.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was poetry.
Southern poetry. But and there are a lot of guys, there are a lot of sheriffs that are not going to support that, and they're not going to, or they're just being silent. And I mean, I know that, in the place where I live, the lockdown was not enforced in any way. They don't have a staff for that. They don't have a staff to go around and tell people to go in their houses. And
dude, in Florida, I was going to the beach with Tony Bruno, George Bruno's brother. We're going to the beach, we're going, restaurant. I was going to the gym and shit during the lockdown. I had access to one that my friend owned. So there was, during Orlando, there was traffic throughout the supposed to stay at home. It's bullshit. Everyone was out doing whatever they wanted, pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, like here, there was a patch where people were legitimately. I mean, I was concerned. I didn't know what was going on. Like I had one of my special forces buddies was pretty hard on this is real, and so I just followed his lead, and I was doing all the disinfecting everything and whatever. And then you watch the numbers and you realize it wasn't real. It's not what they said it was. And I think a lot of people did that, because I just remember, like, I wrote a post about it on Instagram. Like, if there was this weekend where it was very clear that no one gave a shit anymore. I could see it. Like, I go to the supermarket, and all of a sudden the parking lot's full, and people were outside their cars doing whatever they want to. People were having picnics and barbecues, and like they just stopped caring. And they're like, we're not doing this anymore. And
I was the same way at the beginning. The first week or two, it's like, holy shit's popping off. Toilet paper's gone, food's gone, water's gone. I was already stocked up for hurricane stuff, so it's pretty solid on that front. But like you though, you don't really know. I'm not a fucking virologist. I'm not a biologist. I don't study viruses that in depth. I didn't really know. Yeah, I think I already had it though. I think I had it in February. There's interviews on my channel with Coach Corey Wayne, a big YouTuber I interviewed at the time. And you see me coughing just like crazy for like 10 days. Because he interviewed me like 3 times, and then I interviewed him. And all the interviews, I was like, yeah. It wasn't that bad though. I just thought it was like, dude, I thought it was like strep throat or the flu or something. I was like, who cares? Fuck this stupid thing.
Yeah, a lot of people got it, and like I said, they don't even really know what the timeline is. There've been a lot of confusion about that. I mean, my sister had it. I mean, her and her husband, because her husband actually works at a company where he was actually in Wuhan, at the end of last year. So like he came back, and they both got really sick for a couple days. Yeah. And then, you know, so she's been pissed about it the entire time because she's like, I already had it. This is bullshit, you know? But, I mean, so I think a lot of people have had it, and you just don't know. It's a real shame that they didn't protect more old people. Yeah. You know, like they should have protected old people instead of destroying all of our freedoms, you know, like, cause that's really where the risk is, you know, and that's unfortunate that, you know, a lot of old people probably died because they made a lot of bad decisions. And I think a lot of this Black Lives Matter and all this stuff is just really, well, let's focus on this so everybody forgets about, you know, because, you know, they're never going to take responsibility for what they did, you know, and that's the real shame. I mean, I would love to see one governor come up forward like, you know what, I was wrong. Like I did the best I could with the information I had. It didn't work out the way we thought it would. I overshot it, you know, like, but no one's ever going to take responsibility for anything. And so that's a really unfortunate thing about our political system. And I'm not a political theorist. I don't know how to fix it, but, you know, with people, you know, going for re-election every 4 years, I mean, that's their goalpost, and they just have to avoid responsibility and blame somebody else until they get through the next election cycle. And that's what everybody, I think, is focused on doing right now. And yeah, I bet they're real glad that America is, you know, having a mini race war, because I really think, I mean, I could feel it. And I really think that there was about to be widespread civil disobedience in a lot of ways when people got tired of the lockdown. Yeah. And, you know, I think that the government, they magically redirected the anger of the populace at these, you know, race issues that didn't need to be there. And instead of at the governors and things like that, you know.
Yeah, even in Florida, you know, our governor has been, I think Florida's been one of the best states. It's been, I think, maybe at the top throughout the whole union. But even he now is just getting, you know, attacked like so hardcore. He was attacked during all the stuff, even though the cases were low and the deaths and all this bullshit, as well as his limitations on the state. He was like absolutely minimal with everything. You know, the beaches were open. You know, he was accused of that shit. You know, just harassed for it by the media. Even now, though, the state has like, we have the same population as New York and like a fraction of their problems with COVID in terms of cases and deaths and stuff. And he's just getting blasted. It's stupid. It's stupid nonsense.
He's not on narrative, you know, like,
I
mean, that's the thing. So the media is just going to go after those things, you know, like, you know, like, you know, whatever, you know, people got sick at a Trump rally and ignore all the other things that people have been doing, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just how they're focused. And, you know, it's weird that a friend of mine was saying, like, he's like, I don't know how to get, my dad has become a zombie from watching CNN, you know, like, you know, people, I think because we had to tune in to stuff like, I don't watch network news. I haven't in years.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like when stuff like the laws were changing every day, like you're like, oh, I actually have to know some of this stuff. And so I have to be exposed to it. And, but people who were already watching it, then, you know, they're in a position where they're just watching the news 24/7 and it's making them crazy. You know, it's making them into zombies. And then so
it's like food for your brain and you're just stuffing it with garbage.
Yeah. And it's really unhealthy. And they're getting this very curated narrative about reality. And it was hard. I mean, I was having trouble finding anything legitimate when I was looking for information. Just, I mean, like I was watching the state's website, you know, like for numbers. And that's kind of how I made my decision about like, okay, this is bullshit. Like, you know, most of these people are old and sick who are dying. And like the vast majority. The other day I saw what they posted because I still follow it every once in a while, and I'm like, oh, someone who was 95 died of
Yep.
COVID. Like that's the new death of like, oh my God, we've had more deaths. People who are 95 die. It's like it's a sad point of human existence. Like almost no one lives to be 100. You know, and but these people are plugged into that narrative. They're like, people are dying, people are dying, people are dying, and they can't turn it off. And it's really, you know, all the illnesses and so forth and conditions and so forth that are going to come out of this are pretty, you know, bad too. Yeah. And that's the other thing that's really crappy about the way it was handled in a lot of places. It's like everything that was done is about a society that's organized around weakness instead of strength. I mean, like closing down the gyms, stay inside, all the things that we've said that they want us to do, like be like passive little consumers, watching our TVs at home, really getting sicker. Yep. Because I mean, all these people that were in great health then weren't allowed to go to the gym, were eating whatever they could find, you know, getting fat, you know, like
not sunshine, vitamin D levels.
Yeah, totally. That was a really bad misstep if they were actually caring about public health. Like, let's keep everyone inside, even though the one thing that they can actually improve their health and make them more resistant to this is, you know, to be outside. You know, like let's close down the parks where they can hike alone. You know, like that was amazing to me because I never thought they would do that, because why would you do that? Like, I live in a place that looks like, you know, Lord of the Rings. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go out hiking. I can take lots of cool pictures for Instagram. I'll do that. And when they shut down all the parks, I was like, what? Like the one place where you can like, I'm going to be out in nature away from everyone. No,
nope, I saw that. Did you see that video? It was some beach in California. The cops were chasing on foot this like lone jogger running down the beach. He's like actually just going for a jog down the beach, and there's like two cops, and he outran them. So it's just kind of funny. Yeah. But they're just it's like, why are you? What is this dude? This dude is 100 feet from anyone, including the cops. You know, sprinting away from them. But he's just trying to exercise, and they're just like, it's insanity. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just, you know, like all these things are just making people sicker, and it's really not good, you know.
Let's shift gears a little bit. So earlier we were talking about staying solar. We were talking about, and you talked about your experience at the 21 convention, and therefore I think it was one of your first live events, maybe the first for the Manosphere. That's kind of the premier event for the Manosphere in terms of long-running comprehensive conference with a lot of different speakers from throughout that community. So what's your experience been? Because I get a lot of heat for being, you know, people think I'm negative. They think, you know, blah, 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 this bullshit. I get attacked, you know, for being all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I think you're basically saying the event and your experience of the Manosphere community has been very positive. Can you speak to what you've seen about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely been, you know, all the guys. I mean, like you said, like guys like Tanner and AJ Cortez, and I mean, they're all super positive. They're all, you know, and they're friends of mine, and they I'm glad to have met them through that. And they're all setting a very positive message. And I mean, obviously there's, you know, like if you're going to talk about masculinity, you have to talk about feminism and, you know, how that's affecting masculinity and how it's making men worse and really making women worse. I mean, you're trying to make women great again, right? You know, but I love that hat. That was one of my favorite. When you pulled that out, like at that conference, like, well, I think we were all partying in a room or whatever, and you pulled this out. And like, that is genius. Yeah, you know, that was a good one. But you know, I think that, you know, there are it does a lot of harm, and so you have to talk about feminism, and so you're going to come a lot of heat. I don't really go after feminists directly or talk about like things they write about in the news on every day, because I don't want to be their slave where I just respond to them. Because I find that's a trap I think a lot of guys fall into. But I think, you do have to talk about some of the bigger issues.
I like using them. Is actually, I kind of get it from you. You've talked in your speeches about, I think, transvaluation, you call it. And they invert the meaning of things. So I kind of use the same concept, and I look at what they do, like toxic masculinity, as you guys can see here. And I embrace it and flip it on its head to use it back as a weapon against them. So it's like taking their toys and then beating them with it.
Because they're all, I mean, a lot of it's baby talk. I mean, toxic masculinity is baby talk. It's like, and it's really, you know, I forgot about it until recently, but I mean, it's just, they've been doing the same stuff for so long, and I've talked about that a lot. Their agenda really hasn't changed since the 70s. And they used to call it testosterone poisoning.
I I didn't know that.
That was used to be something. I mean, you could probably find articles written about testosterone poisoning and so forth. It was basically their old form of toxic masculinity.
Classic toxic masculinity. Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
like
exactly.
That.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's just a repackaging of the same thing that they've been saying forever. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to talk about feminism is a pretty negative thing, and it's pretty negatively oriented. It's based on demonizing men and killing babies, really.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of, you can't have feminism without abortion, and you can't, like that's unfortunately.
I like the way you put that, though. That I agree with you on the abortion part, but also that feminism is very negative. And if anyone was watching this, looking at what I do, I mean, that's the reason I'm so negative towards feminism. It's because it's a negative, toxic, very hostile movement towards anything life affirming and positive, whether it's men, masculinity, femininity, women, fatherhood, motherhood, family. I mean, it's so fucking toxic. And then they parade it around as this very positive thing, which is absolute bullshit. So,
yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate. And I think that's, I think what you're doing and what other people are doing, it's hard to be in this industry of any kind of activism is usually oriented around people who are broken in some way. And, it's always oriented in right now around resentment and jealousy and anger. And you taken away from you so I can have what I want is basically a lot of, I mean, that's what really feminism was about, which is kind of funny. Basically, like they had to go after men and break up anything that men had so that they can have power. And, like whether it's destroying all the men's organizations that have always existed, like integrating them, they had to go wherever men are and break them up. It kind of just speaks to like how they, like on a level playing field, men won, like men were winning, and so they have to like really handicap men so that they can be powerful.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. And instead, one point I like to make is that, women are not responsible for feminism, in the way, like I'm not responsible for what the government does, and unfortunately, like a lot of women take attacks on feminism as attacks on them. And there are plenty of decent women in the world who they just were born into this world, just like the rest of us. And they're just trying to make the best of their lives.
I think feminism's done a really good job at using that cover. Anything, criticizing against feminism, you hate women. I mean, it's this knee-jerk. It's very effective, I think is why they did it. It's Orwellian.
Yeah. No, I hate feminists who are terrible human beings. Like that's, I don't hate women. I mean, why? It's like, obviously men and women are different. And, like I said, I want to die on the hill of race. But like men and women are different. I'm not going to stop saying that because it's true. And, I think that's really important for people to just understand that in the way that they understand that violence is golden. There are certain basic realities of being a human, and men and women are different. They have a whole different life experience.
Yes.
And so you have to talk about men and women being different and what their natures are and what the differences are.
I really like the way you put that. You mentioned what you just said, that that it colors your life experience. You said the same thing in your speech, Manly Idealism, at the convention most recently from 2019. And I agree with you 100%. I've just from a philosophical point of view with objectivism and Ayn Rand, I came to this conclusion probably 10 years ago that being a man is going to, like you said, color your whole experience of human life from day one all the way to the day you die. When you're a child, adolescence, puberty, in your 20s and 30s, and as you enter into adulthood, parenting obviously is different. Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it came from me having to talk about gender in my earliest books and so forth, and it's a full life experience. I mean, like you had the experience of being a little boy, like they didn't have that. They had an entirely different experience, and it's not all just social programming and mommy put you in a dress and dad, they put you in pants and whatever. It's not that. It's like the way people interact with you and the different problems. And like one of the easiest ways I think to make women understand it is the idea that like they walk through life knowing that everyone wants to bang them, even if they're not even that attractive. Like they know that they could snap their fingers and get sex at any point. And men just don't have that life experience. Like that is not their experience. I mean, even really attractive men, it's still not quite the same.
Also, as a woman who want to, there's constantly, men around them who want to fuck them. There's human beings around you who want to penetrate you.
Yeah.
It's a very aggressive, hostile, which is good and healthy, I think, but it's an assertive, aggressive, hostile thing.
Yeah, and I mean that alone is such a huge difference in your perception of the world. That all these people around me want to penetrate me, and like men don't have that experience. I mean, they maybe walked by a gay bar, got scared one time or something, but like like that's just generally not their reality. They haven't had to experience that, but women experience that every day, and that's a real fear that they have in a lot of ways. And I think it's legitimate. For them to but that's just a different way that our experience is shaped. And so they've been doing that. They haven't been doing it for a week. They've been doing it every day since they were, little girls. Yeah. And, we're just different and we see the world differently. Whereas men also, we have always been charged with protection and dealing with violence. And so we're oriented that way. And we look at things tactically in a lot of ways that women just haven't had to.
Yeah, I like the way you put it in your speech again. It was basically protecting the perimeter, and you brought it right down to not just an analogy, but basically the origin of this is a fire in terms of modern humans.
The easiest way to see it in the world, because it's the light of a fire is a natural perimeter.
Yep.
And outside of that is nothing but chaos. Because you don't know what's there. And our job has always been to protect that perimeter. And because we care about the women, we care about the people who are inside, and the women and children and everybody, and that's always been our job. And so men are just oriented to look to that.
Would you say that protecting culture is a form of protecting the perimeter? In terms of feminism, for example, being an aggressive, very toxic, Orwellian, I think it's a hate group, honestly, like a supremacist group for women, for toxic women anyway. So, I mean, is that an example of that? Like, is that a cultural perimeter we need to protect?
Absolutely. I mean, it's culture is really part of that fire. Everything around you, that's your orientation for life. And that's one of the ways I've explained it, is that our fire is an imitation of the sun. Really, it creates light and warmth and so forth, and it has its own gravity. People gather around the fire, but when we set down a fire and we're creating a new point of reference in the world. And that fire, then becomes culture. I mean, if you create a camp and it's there for a few days, the camp kind of takes on a life of its own, and you get your own inside jokes. I mean, I always say a lot of culture comes from inside jokes, because you start talking about things that now only we understand, the people around the fire, and
well as history and things that happened,
Yeah, and that's history and culture and all that. That is our point of reference. That's how we understand the world, through our myths and our frames and our perception of history and all that. And that's one of the reasons why they're attacking it, I think, is that they're attacking our order, which is our order that's protected within the perimeter, and they're attacking that. But like I said, I don't believe that they have anything. They don't have a new order that makes any sense, because they don't have an understanding of human nature, and they don't understand the tactical reality of things.
Yeah, it's just chaos. They want to destroy order and have nothing in its place, leaving chaos.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, like I always say, like masculine culture is very vertical, and feminine culture is very horizontal. And when they're working in harmony, those things complement each other. But if you just have a culture that's totally in a feminine frame, then they want everyone to be the same, and everyone to feel accepted, and everyone to feel healthy, and they don't want one person to be better than another person. But that's not how the world works. And I think men like to see that order, and that like, okay, well, this guy is better at this, and this, like men hate everyone's a winner. Like they'd rather be a loser than live in a place where everyone's a winner.
Yeah,
men want it to know what is valued, and
because we value competition, and we value the hierarchy that comes from it, right?
Absolutely. And like hierarchy actually comes from, it's like the root of that is like divine order. It's the higher part, when you go like the ancient Greek, it's related to of the gods. and so like your whole perception of order comes from this kind of frame of like what's really sacred to you.
Yeah. And Zeus being at the top of this hierarchy. Yeah.
Yeah. Zeus, the putter. Yeah, yeah, the father figure. I mean, all the religions really have some kind of sky god. I mean, most of the major ones that, you know, and they're all related. If you really look at them, and it's like they have the sky god, and that's this father in the sky, and it's an idealized father figure. And the idealized father figure is really an ideal for men. Like, what is the best that I can be? I can be this father in the sky, this shining force that creates order, and you know, in the realm of chaos, I can create order. And I think that's why that the whole stay solar thing is a really positive mantra. I mean, I created it before all this mess of 2020 started, but you know, we are in chaos. We are surrounded by chaos, and I think that is the struggle is to stay solar, to stay on your path, and to not get sucked into it all, and to try to be a force of light and order and truth.
Yeah, and structure.
Yeah.
You mentioned Make Women Great Again a few minutes ago. One of the way I've been looking at your work for a couple of years now, obviously since you spoke at the convention in 2017. And one of the things I've thought about it a lot, and let me know your thoughts on it, is that Make Women Great Again as a push from men, this mansplaining event of the century and all that, right? I think it's very natural for men to want to protect the woman when they see themselves, when we see them pushing each other off a cliff, say near the fire, in your analogy of it. So do you think is that a natural impulse of men to protect women, including when they're harming themselves? And is Make Women Great Again kind of a illustration of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, men have a natural drive to protect women. And I don't think women see that a lot of times, especially when they've been influenced by feminism and so forth. I mean, a lot of the good men, even they see feminism and they see all this anger and whatever, and their impulse is still to protect them. They still can't. They don't have that animosity because men see women as being more vulnerable than they are, and so good men really don't like picking on vulnerable people. Like they're there to fight other guys like them, not people who are just easy targets. Like they don't want to go after soft targets. They want to go after hard targets. And I think that men want to protect women, and that's one thing that women have really exploited. Feminists have really exploited is that men won't go after them because we consider it kind of beneath us. We're not going to because I've always said there's no honor in competition with women, because at the end of the day, you beat a girl.
Yeah.
You beat a little girl. You made a little girl cry. Good. I mean, there's no honor in that. That doesn't make me feel good about myself. Well, you made grandma cry. Good for you. That's a crappy man. We don't want to do that. Any decent dude doesn't want to make girls cry. They don't want to go after that. That's not what they're designed to do. I mean, the same thing when you practice martial arts and all that kind of stuff. It's no dude is going to a martial arts gym to learn how to beat up women. He's going in there to learn how to beat up other men. They're not. We're not wired to compete with women in that way and to see them as the enemy. We're wired to look at them as something that is more vulnerable and needs to be protected.
Yeah, I think that's why it's been a struggle to push back against feminism for so long in American culture and Western culture. I think Make Women Great Again is one of the first major pushbacks we've seen in a long time. And the reason I think it's working and it's been so effective at reaching over 100 million people now is because of the way you described it when you first saw it. I felt the same way. The minute I saw it, I just knew it was the meme or the idea or the mission to actually strike back in an offensive, an assertive way that was going to be effective. And so far it has been, because it's captured an amazing amount of attention. It is very positive. Even women have noted that support us, like Janice Fiamengo, the professor from Canada.
Yeah.
So it's a good, we need weapons that are effective. And I think, MWAGA is one of the first ones to come out of it. Yeah,
well, because you want to have a positive message. There's so many, all these activist organizations and so forth are, again, motivated by resentment in this negative message and what we need to tear down. And you have to go for a place of creation, a place of positivity. And because that's really, I mean, I don't want to fight against something. I want to fight for something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, because women have, like feminism has created a really bad situation for a lot of women. And it's not good for them. It's not good for men. It's like feminism may be responsible for like a female executive doing well. It's also responsible for Tinder. That all this kind of hookup culture and all these things that are like where women are kind of treated poorly. And it creates a bad reality for them. And I think a lot of women are seeing that, especially now that they're also seeing that they're more vulnerable to violence and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it leaves them lonely old cat ladies. It's broken hearts, broken dreams. They have no babies. They're barren wombs. And then it's like Stefan Molyneux says, what are they going to do from 40 to 80 when they have no kids? And it's like, good luck.
Be activists in social justice organizations, apparently. But I mean, because they have to find a purpose. I mean, and I've talked about that. I did a podcast actually with Richard Cannon recently.
Oh yeah,
touched on it about like, well, if you don't have kids, even as a man, like, how do you find purpose? Like from 40 to 80, like that's a tricky thing. And like I said, a lot of them get sucked into activist causes or whatever because they're looking for some sense of purpose. Because unfortunately, nature's not fair, and their value goes down. Like after as sexual objects, their value goes down pretty rapidly. And again, life's not fair. I mean, if I could change it, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'd say, hey, men and women are going to think each other are hot for like the same amount of time, whatever. But that's just not how it works. Mm-hmm. And so it creates a situation, where they're on top of the world for like 10 years.
Yep. And
then and can do whatever they want and bat their eyelashes and get whatever they want from a lot of guys.
That's what I'm going to say is a lot of manosphere thinkers would counterclaim to what you just said, in that women have a huge sexual market value that's basically free. If they take care of themselves and they don't they're in shape and stuff when they're young, they're between fertility and beauty and youth. I mean, they're right on top of the world for 10 years, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's all downhill. But the inverse of that, of course, is for men is that we don't have that. When you're 20, no one really gives a shit. Whereas if you're 34 and you're a millionaire and you're put together and you're single and you've experienced the world, then later in life you're riding high. So I think a lot of the manosphere would say that things kind of work itself out, but women just perceive it as not fair because it's not indefinite, it's not infinite, that they get to be at the top of the pyramid forever for free.
And that's a good point because young men have a rough time with that. I mean, because man, I mean. I couldn't even wear hats until I was like 35 because I look like a boy, I mean, I used to have to photograph myself in a way to make myself look older. Now that I'm 45, like I don't have to, men don't really grow into their looks, I think really until they're much older. And women have it, like really from a fairly young age, they're kind of at the top of their game in that way.
And it's basically free. They have to just preserve it. Men have to build, as we say in the manosphere. Men build their value, women preserve their value.
Exactly. Because I mean, a man who's accomplished a lot and has a lot to offer that's something that comes from building and life experience.
Yeah. Before moving off the topic of feminism, I did want to ask you, one of the most famous slogans of feminists for, who knows how many decades now, 50 to 100 years, maybe more, is smash the patriarchy, smash the patriarchy, smash the patriarchy.
Right.
In your view, what do they really mean when they say that? Is it really smash the patriarchy? Is it smash something else like fatherhood or family? You have thoughts on that?
Well, that's what that is. I mean, that's what that is. I mean, the pater, the paterfamilias or whatever is is what patriarchy is based off of. The idea that because I've had to look this up actually recently because I would love to. I don't really would it be triggering in that way, but I would love to call the main figure the despoter, like the pater or the patriarchy or whatever, because that's really this father orientation that we're talking about, and that is what they want to smash. They want to this father orientation where the father creates the order within the family. He creates, and in a bigger sense, a father figure creates the order within the world, and they want to bring down this father figure. Whether it's metaphorical or real, I mean, in daddy issues kind of way, But they want to bring down this father figure and reorient the world around women's values. And that's really what it is. It's a shift in values that they want to create by, we've had enough of men's values, for all of history. So then we want to reorient the world around women's values. And that's really what we're doing. We're seeing a society that, wants to comfort everyone, loves victimhood, wants to make everyone feel better and take care of
abolish law and order, abolish that order that we've created.
Well, because that's what men do, is they create law and order. And that's a fatherly thing to do. That's what men have traditionally done in households. Mom takes care of you, she comforts you, she makes you, and dad imposes order, and you don't always like him for doing it. But he has to create structure because that's his job. Yeah. And that's the job of men, really.
I've heard it said that the family is the smallest polity in the world, the smallest basically government you can create. And then from that, like the early Americans, they have families, they want to protect those families. So the families, the fathers come together and create basically government to secure these rights. In a way, it's to secure the family, to secure smaller political entities they've created.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mini order.
Yeah. Would you say that, I've said this in my speech a couple of times, and I'll be open to say that it was at least indirectly, if not in some ways directly, influenced by your work. I've said openly a couple of times that masculinity built America. Masculinity built the West. Do you have thoughts on that? Is that a statement that makes sense to you, and is it consistent with your work?
Absolutely. I mean, well, masculinity built everything. Because
let me one up you a little bit here.
I mean, they're castles and cathedrals, and that men built the world. And maybe that isn't fair. Maybe we should have had a female architect somewhere at some point. Men did build the world. I mean, that's history and that's reality, and that's why they want to erase it. But men did build the world because that's what we do: build stuff. And my favorite feminist writer is Camille Paglia, and I've been reading her.
Oh yeah, I think I think I know who she is.
Yeah. And I've been reading her since I was a kid, and she's a brilliant woman, and amazing stylist. Her writing style is fantastic. And I've seen her speak, and she's terrifyingly intelligent. But one of the things she said, that she used to have to travel with security guards to protect her from feminists, because she said things like, if women ruled the world, we'd still be living in grass huts.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of a famous quote from her. And it's not 100% wrong. And we live in a different world. Women have different opportunities now and whatever. And women do create things, and they do, build companies and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, so it's not like they're incapable of doing that. But history has been where men actually did create the world. And they, like the Old West you used as an example, which is great, because the Old West is a lot like the really Old West. If you look at all ancient myths and so forth, almost all ancient myths have a lot of cattle theft. There's a lot of cattle rustling and cattle theft. Heracles did it, and Indra did it. And it's like the hero is the guy who went and saved the cattle and got the cattle back. So it's very much like the really Old West. But the Old West. I mean, what did you need to go out into this unknown territory? Well, you need to go out and create a campfire and do everything that we just talked about. You can create security in a space that's unknown. That was cowboys and the adventurers and whatever that settled America. I mean, obviously they built it, and obviously we have the government and the rights that everyone takes for granted. Unfortunately, were created by men who fought wars. And so absolutely, men did create the reality that we have. I mean, whether or not, the world is what it is, and I can't change it all, or I don't want to. I always think it's negative to say let's go back to how things were, because that's not, you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. That's just not how things work. So we're in a different reality now, and obviously women are going to have a part in creating the future.
But actually a huge reason why I say make women great again, not make women traditional again. I like a lot of the elements of traditional femininity, so to speak, especially as it relates to some of the religions, how they promote it and things like that. But I think we need something even more positive and more secular for all women to embrace, regardless of what creed they're born into. I want like an American femininity is what I want to create, an American femininity. The same way we have like an American masculinity that is a little more formalized with guys, like veterans and military and stuff like that. Sorry to interrupt you there. But
no. That 100%. No, I agree with you. There has to be some positive vision of where women go in the future that isn't like just barefoot and pregnant. Like that's not an appealing sale to a lot of them. Like they're not going to buy into that. So there has to be some positive vision where like women are also free to work at companies and do things because there are a lot of women who just maybe wouldn't be good mothers and they don't want to be mothers and they're not interested. They're not interested in.
But what I want to see actually happen when I'm going to speak at the 22 convention and Make Women Great Again, my speech is actually motherhood first, which I think is a pretty good solution to what you're saying. That if you look at feminism today, they teach women to put motherhood last. Career, college, blah 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 blah. To, hookup culture, Tinder, get your brains fucked out for fucking 15 years, from 18 to 35 or something. Then try to settle down with some beta schmuck and have a kid real quick before you hit 40. That doesn't work. And I think not only does this not work, women are slowly realizing that, these millennials and shit, as they're now approaching the 40 wall and hitting the 35 wall and stuff. But I think if we flip that on its head, I think it's more biologically sound, first of all, given fertility and stuff for women at 22, 23, all that, right? Health markers. But I think women would be a lot happier if they pursued motherhood first and they did pursue careers later in life, or businesses or art or book or whatever they want to do, right? I mean, if women do that, if women have kids and they're done having kids by, in their late 20s, they can have a career from 36 to 66 or something, like 37 to 67, 30 years to do something. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously in the world where we all work from home, which has obviously been switched, right now, I mean, that's more feasible than it ever has been. Yep. I mean, because you can have a woman who's actually, working on a master's degree while she has kids, or doing it. So I think that it's a lot different than it was when feminists first conceived of their reality. But yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing to have a world oriented in two different ways where like men go get your career, women stay home, that's kind of a strange thing. But I mean, I do think that would be, better for a lot of them. And the thing is like, careers are really good. And I say this a lot, careers, are very fulfilling for a very small amount of people. Most people hate their jobs. Yep. And that's one of the things that I don't think feminists really, they were very selfish in that way, because a lot of them are very, the early feminist theorists or whatever were people who could be very accomplished in, like urban environments. Like Betty Friedan. I mean, I think she was mad that her husband was in publishing. Well, I could be in publishing. Why is he the only one who could be in publishing? But I mean, they can do a lot of things, but
you bring up an important point, though. I mean, feminism convinced a couple generations of women to throw out family, becoming a wife, marriage, babies, in exchange for a career at Starbucks.
Yeah,
I mean, it's ludicrous. It's lunacy.
And that's the thing. There are so many women who got a raw deal with feminism because they would much rather be, who do have kids, because like not everyone is on the super feminist path where they never make a mistake or never have a one night stand where they end up pregnant or whatever, and so then they have kids and you have these single mothers, and so many of them would much rather be at home with their kids. They love their kids and they want to be home with their kids, and instead they have to go to these crappy jobs that they hate. Yep. And they lose the time with their kids that is what is really important to them. And it's such a raw deal. I mean, like, okay, well, like feminism gave you a great, career as a cashier at Walmart. Good luck. For the small, jet setting crowd of women, it's been fantastic. And then for a lot of women, it's been, like, oh, I don't get to hang out with my kids and, all the other things you've talked about.
You bring up an important point too, that most people, I forget that sometimes. I've always run this company my whole life. So I've never really had an experience of working anywhere since I was 17, of doing something I don't want to do. And it's hard for me sometimes to envision that and remember that that's how most people live. They don't work like you do what you love, like me and you both. Yeah. And most people don't. And I forget that sometimes. It's important to speak up and give a voice to that, especially for women who get roped into idiotic bullshit like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few jobs. I mean, I've had I worked for 20 years, You know, like before I was able to go out and do what I care about, I
Yeah.
worked for 20 years. And I mean, I've had, I joke about it because it's crazy because I've had like 35 jobs or something
Wow.
like that. I have to sit down and do the list because where I remember them all. But, you know, I've worked as a cashier at Rite Aid and like, you know, like
Oh,
done, you know, just crappy jobs just to live. You know,
yeah.
like, you know, I'd like to be a delivery guy. You know, so I was a lot of delivery guys, but I've worked in I worked in PR. I worked at, you know, kind of corporate life, and I've done.
Weren't you like a UPS driver too, or something, or FedEx driver?
No. That's a good gig. Actually, that's hard
Uh-huh.
to get. Is the UPS driver for a long time now? It might not be the same way, but they're Teamsters. The UPS guy are Teamsters, and they make you work whatever like the part-time shifts for a lot of areas, which, you know, if you're an adult and you have to support yourself, is not really reality. So they get a lot of college kids who only can work part-time, and then eventually they can become drivers. And the drivers actually make pretty good money. And yeah,
Oh,
that
wow.
was my dream. Aside from the fact for a long time they wouldn't let you have like you could only have a mustache, and
Oh,
that was, you know, like so. But yeah, there's a lot of. But no, I drove a delivery truck. I delivered exercise equipment and produce and you know, gourmet food and stuff like that for a long time, and those were cool. But yeah, I mean, I've done so many. My favorite one that I like to say is one winter I did like all the jobs in the mall, like the seasonal jobs. Like I worked at the Halloween store, and
wow.
then I worked at Hickory Farms. Like I was actually one of the people passing out like, you know, like sausage like samples and stuff like that in the middle of the mall. And so yeah, all those jobs sucked. Like that sucks, having to do that. But I had to make a living, and that's really, you know, feminism really put women in a place where they have to go and do crappy jobs, like the way that men always have had to, because most jobs suck. I mean, you know, dudes were working in coal mines and you know, just doing whatever they can to survive, and that's what
Yep.
most people have to do in life because there aren't a lot of sexy jobs. You know, like
Yep.
not everything is sexy and fulfilling. I mean, even you see it with entrepreneurship, and I think this has been a problem in America, is that you know, we all want to do the sexy job.
Yep.
Like I want to be a photographer, or I want to be run the, you know, like an online business, or I want to do whatever. And who says I want to start a manufacturing plant to create rain gutters? You know,
Yeah.
it's not sexy. You know, like so a lot of people, I think, were trained that we don't want to do the sexy job. But like in the past, you know, a dude was like, well, I think that now I could make a good living doing that. You know, like
Yeah.
there's nobody providing rain gutters in this town. I think I could make a good living. You know, that seems like a good gamble, and I could make my, you know, life
No,
that.
I agree. There's definitely been the Instagram, social media stuff's definitely pushed this. They've glamorized like this certain wing of entrepreneurship, and everything else is just looked down upon. The same way trades are looked down upon, electricians, plumbers, things like that. There's actually huge demand for it too. You know, Mike Rowe, if you know him, the Dirty
Oh
Jobs,
yeah,
he talks a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
about this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And I've been pushing that. I mean, I looked into that, and it's actually it's another place where like women have kind of been given a leg up. Is that there are so many organizations that you can go to as a woman where like women in the trades, and like they'll give you they'll basically tell you how to do everything. And if you're
Yeah.
a dude and your dad didn't also work in the plumbers union, man, it's hard to figure out. I mean, I'm not a dumb guy,
Yeah.
and like I remember because I was looking into stuff like that because I'm like I want to stop working crappy jobs and just have some security.
Hmm.
And I was looking into the trades at one point. They're actually kind of hard to get into. You
Wow.
know, if you don't know what to do, uh, there's not a lot of hand holding that people do to get you into them. You know,
Yeah.
and it's a big sacrifice on the upswing. You know, I mean, it's a big buy-in, a lot of it, because you have to apprentice for a long time, and there's a lot of things you have to do to get into those fields. And you know, if you're just a regular guy, sometimes they're very, you know, it's difficult. And but the trades are, you know, yeah. No matter what happens, well, I won't say no matter what happens because we're living 2020, but
Yep.
they're um, like plumbers. I mean, you know, I guess the pun is that's kind of a shitty job, but like like plumbers, you're not. We need plumbers. Like that's not work I can do, and I don't want to do it. And there aren't a lot of people who want to do it. And yeah, those guys make good money, and
Yeah.
it's an expertise, and it's a decent living. And
Yeah.
you know, no matter a lot of things can go away, a lot of jobs can go away, but you know, if we're gonna have toilets and running water, somebody has to be a plumber. like, a lot of manufacturing could go overseas. A lot of the other things can go away, but like, we need plumbers, and it's a good thing to do. And yeah, it shouldn't be looked down upon at all. I mean,
you made a good point too, that jobs can just go away. I mean, the gig economy just got wiped out. All these Uber drivers and, shit like that, gone.
Yeah. Things can, like chaos. Like things can definitely like, isn't there a popular like book for managers and whatever, like Who Moved My Cheese? And I think is a popular like kind of self-help book for business world. And that's definitely like what's happened. Like, like you set yourself up to do this one thing and then it goes away. Yeah. And that's happened to a lot of industries over time, but still need plumbers. Like, but there's a lot of things like that. I mean, that we're still going to need people to build things and so forth. And so, I think that's, it's not glamorous, but it needs to get done.
A lot of entrepreneurship too. You mentioned just that earlier in the kind of the section here. I mean, entrepreneurship's rough, man. Anybody running like a real business and not some fucking influencer bullship where you're posting pictures of your ass with like some protein, some whey protein next to it.
No.
Entrepreneurship's tough, man. I mean, I've done it my whole life. I've always worked the job I want. I mean, I did work a couple of like part-time jobs as a kid. I was selling TVs at Circuit City and Sears and shit like that. Everything, they're all out of business now, of course. But I built my business very young. It was not intended to be a business. It turned into one kind of organically. Mm-hmm. And then I've just done that ever since. And I don't know how to do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. I want to keep doing what I want to do. And I found myself, of course, like you, at this very odd time in history where that's becoming increasingly necessary for a lot of different reasons. But it's tough, man. Entrepreneurship's fucking, I loved Elon Musk's quote from probably 2 years ago now or something like that. He said, entrepreneurship's like eating glass. And that's been my experience for 14 years now. It's fucking hard, man.
Another one that's good is and I knew a guy who, actually has benefited right now. I mean, he built an exercise equipment company and they're doing very well. Right now. I mean, everybody's been sold out for months of everything and they can't make exercise equipment fast enough. But, I saw a quote and I sent it to him back in the day. And it's something like entrepreneurship is jumping out of a plane and figuring out how to build a parachute on the way down.
Yep. Exactly.
Yes. And obviously my business is a little different. Obviously, I mean, I'm an author, but it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sitting here like, should I make patches? Like, is that a good way to spend my money? Am I going to lose my ass on that? Like, like what service should I use? And you start to have to make all these decisions, and it is tough work. It's like there is a lot of risk involved. Like, I make a bad decision, and now I'm in debt. Like that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's adventurous. Yeah, it's risk.
Yeah. I mean, you've obviously had that happen with like the 21 convention. It's like, we have a convention. Oh wait, COVID. What do you do? I mean, it's really stressful.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. Yeah, exactly. It's just like I love that quote you just gave though. Jumping out of a plane, figuring out parachute on the way down. Yeah, I mean that is especially the events. That's what it is too. I mean, COVID is a particularly nasty example. I mean, the whole conference industry, the airline industry, the hotel industry just got fucking wiped out.
Yeah.
But I'm still kicking, going strong, kicking ass. But that's on me. It's personal responsibility is why it gets done. The entrepreneurs who succeed are the ones who take responsibility and lead, and they lean into that the virtues you talk about: strength, courage, mastery, and honor.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to figure out, well, how do I want to not have to go get a job at Circuit City or whatever? Like how do I avoid that reality? And then it's on you to figure it out. Because otherwise, you just run out of money. I guess I have to go get a job. I mean, I would like to, like, how do you stay on top of bullshit that happens? Like, the article that was almost about me the other day. Like, how do you stay on top of it? Like, what happens, if something bad happens in that realm?
Got to keep the dream alive, man. Keep the dream alive.
Yeah, you got to keep going. Like, and just find the new way. What's the new outlet? How do I stay alive? How do I keep doing what I'm doing and
survive?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, I don't think it was you, I think it was Ivan Throne, a speaker we know from the convention. Mm-hmm. And I forget the exact quote, but it was basically just survival is such a huge, the will to survive, the desire to survive, the fight to survive is such a positive, life-affirming thing. And that gets lost today in this super comfortable culture. But entrepreneurship is still very real. even before COVID. Businesses, I think by 10 years, like over 90% of businesses fail, meaning they don't survive, they die. And that's the thing. That's an entity. My company is it's not a living, breathing thing, but it's like a baby to me almost. Like it's something I have to take care of. It doesn't talk. It doesn't have baby talk, but it does need to be. It needs to be fed and nurtured and protected, and a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I mean that's the struggle with any of this stuff. It's like you have to keep. You can't just let it go because it'll go away. Like you can't just stop working. Because it goes away. And so, you have to keep producing. I mean, I have to do the same thing. It's like, well, eventually my books are not going to sell as much. So then I have to do what's the next step and how do I make money and all that kind of stuff. You have
There's momentum to it. Momentum.
Yeah. And it's like, it's, like the guy I live with. I mean, it looks like I'm on vacation to him, because he has a job. And so it looks like I'm always on vacation. I might be doing something or sending some email or whatever at 10:30 at night because that's what needs to get done. And I can make it look like vacation, but if I don't do anything for 6 or 8 months, it's going to start going down, and so I need to like stay on top of stuff and look for the next thing.
Yep. Let's round out and kind of finish off the conversation for today. It's been about an hour and 46. Last topic we'll discuss very briefly. We mentioned it a little bit throughout the show, but not too much. Civil war. Yeah. What do you think the likelihood of civil war is in America at this point?
On a light note.
On a light note, yeah.
On a light note, let's talk about Civil War. What the likelihood of it? I mean, man, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have been like, that's not going to happen. Like I've kind of. You talk about entrepreneurship, like put your eggs in a basket. And I definitely was banking on things continuing pretty much as they are. I mean, when I was younger, like when I first started writing The Way of Man and whatever, I was like, this thing needs to fall apart. It needs to fall apart and be put back together again. Yeah. And, then, like I was doing better in life and I was like, well, let's assume that it isn't going to, let's just plan for the future as if it isn't going to fall apart. And now, man, I don't know. It's, like I said, I don't really want to live through a civil war. I'm not excited about it. It doesn't end well for most of us. And, it's a brutal reality.
Yeah.
But I do think that, there's certain things that, and I always have to preface this because I don't know, like, hi FBI. I'm, like, I'm not starting the revolution. It's not me. I'm not doing it. But I'm not that guy. I'm not a general. I don't have that skill set. But man, lockdown number 2, you have my blessing, guys. Get it started. Because we can't do this again. Like this is not how you run a country. And like I said, the things about our eroding freedoms and so forth. It's like how far is too far? I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to be a serf. It's like I think there's it's like if they do a hard miscalculation on guns, like we talked about earlier. Once that starts, it's not going to stop. You go to a couple rednecks' houses and try and pick up guns, and then a lot of cops get shot, and then that touches stuff off.
These are really good ways to put it. I love the points you're making here. So lockdown number 2 or gun confiscation, both of which are a slippery slope. Most people are skeptical of this, but I believe there's slippery slopes to genocide. I mean, every totalitarian regime in history wants to confiscate, for example, weapons from people to disarm them, to make them vulnerable and easy to kill, easy to round up, easy to gas, easy to shoot, easy to hang, easy to starve.
Vaccinate.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things are on the table in a way that they haven't been in my lifetime. And in a way that, like I said, I really want things to work out.
Me too.
Positive. Like I would love to see a sweep of people getting into politics. And you're seeing that. You're seeing a lot of guys who have the right skill sets getting involved in politics and stuff right now. Who are more freedom oriented and so forth, and I think
we even look at it from people criticize obviously Trump is a super controversial figure, but sure. I agree with what you're saying. You're seeing these people get in politics that are more liberty oriented, things like that, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, those kind of ideals. But also from an attitude perspective, we see guys like Trump leading the charge for being aggressive, being offensive, not being politically correct. And, you know, I don't agree with everything Trump does, but I love in terms of policy and stuff, but I love his attitude. And he calls it teaching them how to win. And he is. You have to be fucking assertive. You have to be aggressive. You have to make fun of them. Just openly mock. If people hate you and they want you to die and they want to abolish everything you stand for, at minimum, you need to make fun of them. Just ridicule the shit out of them, you know? And he's taught people how to do that. I've learned that from him. You know?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's really good at that in a practical way that I think only he can do. But I mean, you know, like you could definitely learn a lot from the way he handles problems. And I think that a lot of people, a big problem, like, you know, if this cancel culture and all this, people get real scared, and they start apologizing and bowing down and doing all this stuff, and that is the wrong way. Yeah, that's the wrong way to handle it. Most of the time, you wait it out, and you know, just like don't respond or wait it out or handle it better. And I think he's definitely helped people realize that what's happening in the moment isn't necessarily the big picture. Yeah. You know, and so that to not be afraid of every little thing that comes up or everything little thing that you're accused of or whatever, because it's not who you are. I mean, yeah. I mean, I had a guy, a good friend of mine, actually, I was talking about that article or whatever that came out or whatever. And he was like, you know, keep doing the right thing and the right people will know it. And, you know, because, you know, like I said, I'm just trying to do good stuff. And I think that if I just keep doing that, you know, that's who I want to be. You know? Yeah.
Final question, I guess, is what do you think is going to happen independent of who wins? Like, how do you think November 4th is going to go down the day after the election? Because I mean, from the guys I talk to, a lot of the speakers that you and I both know, my own personal opinion, it's like, I don't see how November 4th, the day after the election, is peaceful, no matter what happens. Like, I don't see a road to that. It's not impossible that it'll be peaceful, but it seems like very, very unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, that's you know, like, man, 2020 is gonna be crazy. I mean, like everything's doing this thing right now, and then you're gonna have the election craziness, and then like after the election, yeah, I mean, there's gonna be riots. Yeah. I mean, like I said, no matter what happens, I mean, and then it's just a matter of who's in charge of dealing with the riots, and what their response is, and who knows, maybe that touches off the Civil War. You know, like on either side. You know, like what happens, you know, like, you know, if the, you know, let's say Biden by some chance, you know, magically becomes president, you know, let's say, and then like does some hard moves, like in gun conversation or in putting things down in, you know, like let's force everyone to wear masks or let's force everyone to do this or that. And people aren't going to take it anymore and he'll misstep. And like, is that going to be the thing? Yeah. You know, or if, you know, the same thing, like if Trump wins, then you're going to have more of the riots right now. Yeah. You know, what more of what just happened is going to be more of the same. And who knows if some response comes from that is really, you know, whether that touches something off, you know, like if they go and burn the wrong person's house down, you know, like that's, what comes from that. So yeah, it's real hard to plan, man. It's real hard to plan right now.
So your advice to the guys, of course, individually would be to prep. Just like Piero San Giorgio talks about, you know, our friend.
Yeah. I mean, be prepared. I mean, that's what I've been saying lately. I mean, like, as you said, the way of man and everything has just gotten real.
Yeah. And, it's like a movie on TV all day.
Yeah. I mean, things have got real. I mean, this is how reality is working out. And a lot of things I said, I mean, I wish I would have taken myself more seriously, you know, like a lot of things that I've said. I mean, yeah, if now's your window because things could get real bad in the next 6 to 8 months. And so you're freer now than you have been. Go out and reach out to guys and reach out to guys around you, people who you could depend on, people who are better than you at things. And, you know, if you can get some skills, if you just bought a firearm, like a lot of people just did, you know, you better take some classes and learn how to use them while you have the window open. Yep. You know, like now's the time for all this stuff. It has to be prioritized. And, you know, it's like I have stuff to do this week, but I have like a guy that I've had lunch with a couple times in town because he was actually a reader of mine who recognized me randomly in town. And so I've been like, hey, I'm having lunch with you. And then he hit me up yesterday and I'm like, I have a busy week, but prioritize it. Okay, I'm having lunch with him again this week. You know, like you got to keep reaching out and make all those connections with all those guys because they could be your lifeline or just, you know, it's good anyway. but it's good to have friends. But it's good, you need people to be in a situation because you might need to defend something someday.
It's good to have fire insurance, even if your house isn't, or flood insurance. The hurricane might not come this year, but it's good to have it. You don't have insurance because it's going to burn down. You have insurance because it might, and the probability I think is higher than ever right now. That seems to be the consensus among the guys that we know.
Yeah. I mean, it's time to get skill sets and make connections and do everything you can, and make connections in your local community, because that's really what matters. We're so focused. I mean, you and I both, what we do for a living, like we're so focused on like, oh, I have a really good friend over here, a really good friend over there, and we're all around the world, right? Yeah. But that's not going to help you when shit goes down. That's you need people around you locally who are dependable, and also it'd be good to know the cops. It'd be good to know the police. It'd be good to know the the people who are producing things locally, and support local businesses to the extent that you can. All the build relationships with people, because they're the people you're in it with. Whether you like it or not, those are the people around you are the people who you're going to have to deal with if things get bad. Yeah.
This has been my attitude too. Past few months, this whole year really has been stepping up my game for firearms, how many I own, I'm training with, how consistently I'm training, stocking up on different stuff, food, water, all the ammo, all these things. I'm glad I was prepped as I was. I got into prepping, like Piero is, famous for as an author. I got into that about 10 years ago, thankfully. And it kind of feels like, it kind of did calm down for me over the recent years. But now this year, it's really picked up again. It's like, oh yeah, I know what I need to do. I know what I need to train. I know I need to train more often. And I've actually I've been pretty happy with that. I've been going through that more consistently. And I agree with you 100%. It's the people, locally that are going to count, not my friends, across the country or in another fucking country. Oh, the prepper I know in Europe, great. What is that going to help me when the shit's in the fan here? When the looters are, running down the street with baseball bats. Yeah. Well, Jack, this has been a great conversation, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So where can people find you on Instagram and website?
The handle I use for everything is Start the World.
Okay.
So I'm on Instagram. My website is jack-donovan.com. Like I said, I'm on Parlay now. At Start the World, I believe, is the handle there. And and obviously also YouTube. I have a lot of videos now, and I put my podcasts up on YouTube. So and I'm supposed to have you as a guest on here not too long from now, hopefully.
Let's do it. Fuck yeah.
Cool. All right.
Cool. Well, Jack, appreciate your time. Everyone watching, appreciate you tuning in live. Make sure you hit the like button, the share button, leave a comment. It helps the video and the speaker here, Jack. Also, make sure you pick up his books, including More Complete Beast, The Way of Men, and Becoming a Barbarian on Amazon. They're both on Amazon.com, link in the description. And his website, like you said, is jack-donovan.com, link in the description. I'll see you guys probably not next Saturday. We're going to take a hiatus for the 4th of July weekend. But the week after that, we'll have another special guest on. Appreciate your time. Peace out. Thank you, Jack.
All right, man. See you later.